Welcome to Fridays with Anne. This is a series of conversations with Belgian homeopath Anne Vervaeke about homeopathy. I will ask her curiously whatever confuses me in homeopathy, like case taking, case analysis, or theory in general, and Anne will answer according to her insights, experience, and most recent findings. You, the viewer, are invited to participate actively, so please feel free to send in comments and questions. And now today's episode of Fridays with Anne. Hello everybody and welcome to another Friday with Anne. Hello Anne.
Hi Joost.
Good morning. We had a very interesting chat last time about gems and stones and classifications, and we will continue on this topic somehow, somewhat.
Okay.
First of all, as we didn't go into the detail of the questions that one of the listeners from Canada had sent in, I want to address them with you, basically just ask you directly, and then we can go on to another topic. So last time we spoke, we were looking for general themes for stones as a group. And the homeopath, she sent in a question asking whether there is also some type of group characteristic for trees as a group in homeopathy.
Aha. That's a good question. I heard that question before actually. That big trees have or are supposed to have common characteristics, and according to me, I don't really see the point. Because big trees is not a taxonomic group to start with. You know, kind of plant families have trees and bushes and small plants in their same family.
Yes.
And according to the place where they live, they're bigger or smaller. Not only the trees, but other plants as well. And I think, according to me, they are mostly loaded with symbolism. And the symbolism is what they represent for us. Like a tree is much bigger than us, and it has its roots in the soil, and it has this firm stem, and then these wide upside branches like in the air. But all plants have their roots in the soil and their leaves in the air. I mean, they're not our own representatives of our connection with heaven and earth and all that. It's a symbol. It's a very usable symbol, but I don't see any particular characteristic to trees that other plants wouldn't have. Although I'm aware that people sometimes say, yeah, but a person who needs a tree wants to do big things and they want to be big, and I'm not sure. I think we're not on solid ground here.
You're not sure, meaning that you haven't made the experience. You don't think so?
Actually, not at all. No, the Michael Yakir system, in the second column, there are many trees. The second column is represented by like a first division of the feminine wholeness, the first step where the masculine aspect enters. And the whole row is characterized by doubt and hesitation and insecurity, not like these big leaders who, self-aware, know what to do. At the contrary, they want to do big things, but they feel very weak and all that. You have weakness and strongness, which is, to me, makes more sense than our symbolism of the big tree is the symbol of grandeur or something,
Yeah. I see. Yeah, because otherwise I think we could also expect that shrubs, bushes would share the same characteristics somehow, or maybe tiny plants. I don't know.
Yeah, feel small, and medium plants feel mediocre. I don't think so. I don't think so. You know, it's very good that people attempt to find systems and characteristics in groups. And I talked about this book of Todd Rowe, Desert Remedies. Another and a very thorough work that I, read with a lot of interest on common characteristics of desert phenomena, whether it be plants or minerals or animals. And yes, he finds some characteristics, of course, living in the desert himself. He's from Phoenix, right? And yeah, I can understand his resonance with the desert. Of course, there's something to it. And of course, the desert feel is completely different than the jungle feel or mountain area. But does it apply to our plants? I was in Iceland this summer, and I saw for the first time in my life trees crawling on the soil, on the floor. The circumstances, the weather is so harsh, the climate is so severe that the plants, the trees, don't even manage to grow upright. I saw willow trees lying on the floor.
Yeah.
So where is this doing big things of the tree? It's circumstantial.
Yeah.
Do we have an Icelandic biome? I don't think we have circumstances. So before we talked about what is the sensation, it is like the seed. It's like the carrot seed that you plant in your garden. What is the personality? It's a result of the circumstances. But we prescribe for the sensation. We prescribe for the carrot seed.
Yeah.
Whether it, whether it has grown up in good circumstances or in bad circumstances. And so the circumstances determine how the plant, for instance, will look like. But it's still the same plant.
Yeah. I see. Yeah. Okay. Yes. So, all right. Yeah. I mean, I had that, and the homeopath from Canada who sent the question also was saying that botanically they are not all in one group. Trees are not all in one group, one family. So it seems that there is a lot of what's it called, coherence between homeopathic families and botanical biological families. So it was from that point of view also unlikely to be found in homeopathy.
No. I understand we definitely need all these charts and overviews, but sometimes I think we make an attempt that in the end doesn't prove to be very useful.
Yeah, and as you say, we make the group of trees, but it's not a group in scientific terms.
Not at all. No, not at all.
Right. So much for the classification of certain substances. Today we wanted to speak for the major part about another classification, and was the classification of disease.
Yes.
And it's a classification that Hahnemann himself, the great Hahnemann, has already written in his Organon. And this is also something which we wanted to dig out again. So I invite you to share what is important about this nowadays, and what is your perspective on it?
Yes, classification of diseases. It's one of those lessons in the first year, probably students dread, and then listen to, and then as soon as possible forget. as it belongs to, Organon stuff and all those things, that it's something you have to
aphorisms.
Yeah, you have to endure. But after 2 years, the it's over and done. And it's not. It's very practical, as a lot of aphorisms in the Organon actually give practical recommendations. Now, this classification
seems to be timeless, so to say.
And the more you read it, the more you say, this is still actual. It could have been written like recently. It's still applicable. So the classification of diseases, in a broad sense, we have new diseases, but in his time he saw, and this was new, he made a big, separation between acute and chronic diseases, right? Which for us now is all normal. You think, yeah, of course we know that, but for him it was like the first time he really saw this, because disease is very often equal to acute disease. So his whole theory on chronic diseases was actually revolutionary. In these acute diseases, he made a distinction between like individual acute diseases, like if you have a pneumonia, you have an individual acute diseases. There are also contagious acute diseases. Then you get an epidemic, you know, like influenza, whatever. And then there are this particular kind of acute diseases, contagious acute diseases that you can have only once in a lifetime. And we call them children diseases. Because most of the time they occur during childhood, and they give lifelong immunity. Which is not the case for other acute diseases, not all other acute diseases. Some, yes. If you have hepatitis A, then you will be immune for the rest of your life. But it's not the case for all contagious epidemic diseases. You can have some more than once. But with children diseases, normally you don't. If you do, then it's a rubric to prescribe for. And it's a symptom. So that's, let's say we all understand this. That's the acute part of the whole disease picture. And then you have chronic diseases. And of course, with our patients as non-doctors, we see more people with chronic diseases. Well, because of the emergency feeling within acute diseases, or people are not sure that non-doctor homeopaths are well enough trained to be aware of possible danger, etc. And also because chronic patients don't find any relief anywhere else. So they try things, medication and all that, to suppress their symptoms, but they realize, or some of them realize, that in the end they don't get better, or they even get sicker. And that is what Hahnemann already understood, that when a chronic disease is not treated, it gets worse by itself. Even if you don't do anything, it's just getting worse. It's not gonna leave you one day. It's constitutional. It's like a constitutional weakness, and it will probably not show itself too much when you're young and full of energy, but according to your lifestyle, it will show itself in your late 20s or 30s and getting worse, unless you do something like treating the chronic disease with a miasmatic remedy. So he saw three kinds of chronic diseases, because he said you have real chronic diseases and you have not real chronic diseases. So the unreal chronic diseases, he said, are either due to lifestyle, which is not a chronic disease in itself. If your symptoms are a result of the way you lead your life, and he describes like living in humid cellars or whatnot, not seeing any daylight, or not exercising, or drinking too much or something, then obviously you should change your circumstances. That would be enough. If he says, if then your symptoms disappear, you didn't have a chronic disease at all. Not a symptom, an expression of something inside. It's just a result of your circumstances. That seems very clear to everybody. And then he says another kind of an unreal chronic disease is due to medical treatment. He even says in his Organon and how actual can you be, that these are the worst of all.
Yeah.
In his notes, he used a few more or less dirty words to say that, you know, this treatment is actually ruining the patient and make him virtually incurable.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the prognosis,
if there was one thing that I would change about the Organon, I would take out all the ranting of the allopaths. That's a bit overdoing it, but anyway, yeah.
Yes, yeah. Well, even if you can see that it is a result of medication, and the medication at that time was surely, you know, very harsh as well. It was
it was more apparently barbaric. Yes.
Yes, yes, yeah, and it was like clear poisonous sometimes, but the end result is the same. If you give a little bit of poison every day, or you give like big doses of poisons in a short period of time, the end result might be more or less the same.
Yeah.
And then you have the real chronic diseases, on which we always focused in the training and focused with our patients, the real chronic diseases, the miasmatic diseases. You have 3, you know, psoriasis, psychosis, and syphilis. That's Hahnemann's big invention. And from then on, we started to determine whether our patient belonged to one of these chronic states, and we saw psoriasis as the underlying cause of all of them, and then other miasms were built upon it, like the cancer miasm and the tubercular miasm. And until today, we focus on only this, you know, like 95% of all the attention goes to only this class of diseases, while I think we overlook the other reasons. So that's why it's important.
Exactly. That is now the interesting part, because this classification is a classification that distinguishes between one or the other or the other or the other.
Yeah.
Which probably is not seen nowadays very often in real life. I don't know about back then, but nowadays I would say there is a lot of mixture of these aspects.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And that probably is one of the reasons of our so-called complicated cases we see nowadays more and more and more. We say, oh, 30 years ago, you know, our cases seem to be clear, straightforward. We just saw like a podium walking in, or we saw sepia walking in or something. Or even after 10 minutes, we knew it was atrial Muir, and now we don't see those cases anymore, and which is true. We don't prescribe, not because we have 1,000 other remedies to prescribe for, but we don't see those cases from the book very often.
And so why do you think that is? You said, so it's not because we know more remedies that we are able to see more remedies, but what has changed then?
Well, one of the things is, of course, our knowledge has refined. So we see more remedies. What we before would have thought an atrial Muir, maybe now we see it's, you know, a less known compound on the periodic table somewhere there, but not quite.
Yeah.
The other thing is our patients became more complex as well. I wrote a few blogs on that. That's why my blog is called Homeopathy for the 21st Century. That we entered a century where everything's changed, circumstances changed, and so the world changed, and so the patient as well. They also changed. And in what way? Well, part of it, I think, is a result of how they were treated. And we know from childhood on, they won't have had childhood diseases probably because of the vaccination. So at that time, when people did have childhood diseases, it was considered, or at least some people still consider it today, as like a big jump in your evolution, something that you have to throw off in order to evolve more quickly. And, you know, even the anthroposophical view nowadays still holds to that conviction.
Very much so. Yes, yes.
And always, you know, if the parents witness this truth, it's not an invention. Parents see that after the measles, like the child.
No, and it's nothing that a doctor could observe, because they normally don't know the children enough to be able to see a development or a jump in development, a leap in development in a child that they see in their practice.
They don't see him enough to see the before and after difference. So let's say they're deprived of that, experience, that necessary evolutionary step, etc. What long-term result this has, we actually don't really know. We are worried about all the additional products that are put in vaccines. That's one thing. There's a lot of poisons in it. It's not a good idea to inject in babies. We all do agree. But on the other hand, we also prevent them of having the disease that has a disease aspect, but also maybe a curative aspect.
Yeah, because we see disease as something to be, by all means, to be avoided.
Yes, yes, and childhood diseases although they have a danger in them for weak people, for weak children, there is a danger. But
which we see nowadays mainly in developing countries,
People are undernourished and etc. You know, the circumstances are so bad that even the diarrhea kills a lot of babies.
Yeah.
They shouldn't die of those, let's say, trivial causes. But anyway, so that's one thing. Most of our patients, if they're younger than 60, let's say, will have had their vaccinations, or at least a few, 5, 6 or 10, you know. I think nowadays it's up to 40 shots before you're 2 years or something. So that's one reason. We see the long-term effects of multiple vaccinations and a lot of repetitions and all that. That's one thing. Then how many patients do you see who don't take medication? They become rarer and rarer bit today.
Especially as the population is also aging more, or is surviving longer. There are hardly people who are not under constant medication in their 60s or 70s.
Agree. And the older, mostly, the more medication they take, because you know, the pharmaceutical industry thrives on the old people. They take a lot of medication and they're very loyal to their doctors and all that. But even young people, the women start with anti-conception. Well, that's medication, right?
Yeah. It's hormones,
It's the hormones in your body from very early age, 14, 15, 16 sometimes. And that is considered normal to take that for a few decades. And then, you know, all the people with concentration problems, and they take a pill, they pop a pill to have better exams. and students take pills to sleep better and whatnot. It's so common. To take a pill for everything. I even had a scientific person who considered the feel-good pill as a rational solution for her depression. Scientific to come up with an idea like this, that the feel-good pill is a hormone.
Of course.
It regulates your brain chemistry. Who wants that?
I mean, if you have nowhere else to look for, then correcting chemistry in your body, then that's an obvious choice.
And it becomes the new normal. It becomes the new normal. Nobody thinks that it's strange that I think 30% of all prescriptions in Belgium are antidepressants. So 1 out of 3 patients get the prescription. Maybe they don't all take it, but most of them think it's, well, you know, I need my pill, and you know, so we get those patients.
And so you have, so that is then largely, as it sounds, due to an increase, or maybe not an increase, of probably also an increase of medication, which is again Hahnemann's category of allopathically induced disease.
Not real chronic diseases, but since, let's say, since Sankaran, we consider all patients as chronic patients. Why? Because we understand that everybody has a uniqueness, and the sensation actually equals the uniqueness in a person. So even in Sankaran's idea, an acute state, not an acute disease, but an acute state is a miasmatic state of being in the world. So that is your way of being. So Hahnemann would have said, if you stop your medication and maybe you do some detoxification measures, then your chronic disease will be gone. Now, we consider this not the case anymore. Your chronic disease is the way you are. That will never be gone, no matter what you do. So, and it's not the purpose of the homeopath to make this disappear, because what would be left if your uniqueness is gone? So that will always be there. We will try to align this unique being in the most harmonious way possible with his higher self and all that, but we don't try to make it vanish. All people would be equal. So that is where we differ from Hahnemann. That means if Hahnemann says there's only one kind of chronic disease, the miasmatic one, we've changed in that matter. We consider now everybody as basically a chronic case that can have an epidemic disease or an acute disease or whatever, or a layer or an extra complication of medication, vaccination, and the third thing is of what he calls lifestyle. We see a mixture of all of that. And the lifestyle topic is becoming more prominent as well, because even if you don't take medication, your lifestyle might be either triggering or, how to say, keeping your symptoms in place.
Yeah. So that is all well and good. So how do we handle it actually in real practice? I understand the ideas and I understand the complication and understand that our perspective has shifted, that now we see disease also. What has shifted is that we see disease actually more rooted in levels beyond mind and body, even though that's what Hahnemann said back then, but he didn't how can I say, he didn't look at the precise facets of all the emotional states and what might be behind the emotional states. He would still look at very much at so to say superficial emotional and detailed physical aspects.
Yes, and they're still reliable because they're not so much the subject of interpretation, but they're harder to differentiate the one from the other. Because on the physical level we are more alike than on the mental emotional level.
Yes, and especially also with all the medications, a lot of the physical symptoms don't find their constant expression, and people have little observation of peculiar physical symptoms because they're suppressed most of the time when they come to us. So it's not a good differentiation. So what do we do apart from no, not apart from, but with all these new insights, what do we do in actual practice? How do we approach a case?
Yes. So my first question always, it sounds maybe a bit silly, but my first question always is, what kind of patient is in front of you? What kind of case? So I think this is a good starting point for any case. After 10-15 minutes, you can ask yourself, and if you cannot make it explicit, then you can even ask for a little break and say to the patient, write down a few things, whatever, that you have your ideas more or less explicit. And the kind of case, what I mean is, do you have an idea of the level of pathology, where the problem actually is? Do you have an idea already of the history that the patient told you? Because if he tells his complaint, he will probably say how long he has already troubled with it and what other things he has, etc. So you have like a quick overview of the whole case.
Yeah.
why is it worthwhile? Because there might be, and then you have to explore, there might be reasons to do other things first, then try to look for the simillimum.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because the problem might not be there.
Yeah.
As I'm the simillimum prescriber, I've seen often now that the simillimum doesn't work. I'm trying to understand why it comes, what is the reason for that. And when I see the patient, because I don't always see them, when I see the patient, I came to understand that the problem sometimes wasn't originated from the vital level. It's not always.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when it doesn't originate from the vital level, often the simillimum is not able to restore the harmony on all levels. It's like the other thing blocks it.
The other thing is still affecting the vital force too much for it to be restoring itself.
Yes.
To health.
Yes. So it's not enough to say, yeah, the cases are complicated with all the suppression and all that. Yes, they're complicated in what way, and what is the patient actually suffering from? Mm-hmm. If it is a completely disorganized and depleted immune system, it might not even be, how to say, his vital problem. So it might be a result of his lifestyle, and his lifestyle might even be almost unavoidable, because that's the environment where he lives in. You know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you can say, oh, you have too much stress, and you have to have less stress, and you have to do some yoga, or I don't know, to relax. Well, that won't help, you know. The society is still there with all this pressure and demands and toxins and whatnot.
So, you have to move and you have to change your life in order to get healthy. That's not a good solution for many patients.
No, and if they're completely, you have to say, depleted. Let's say if the energy body is empty, it's damaged. You know, there's things might go in, but everything's just leaks out. That they just can't live the life that the circumstances would ask from them. Even with the pressure, like even diseased people should go to work nowadays or go to a psychotherapist because it's all between their ears. You know, those people won't even be helped with a simillimum. There's just enough energy. You have to restore that first.
Yeah, and that brings me to the other question, to another question that I thought of while you said this. This sounds to me as if it had to do also with individual constitutions, because many people live in similar circumstances, but not all, or with similar lifestyles, but not all of them also suffer then from symptoms.
Exactly. It's the canaries, right? The ones who crashes first.
Yeah.
Crash first, they give in first. Combination of less, how to say, the threshold is lower.
Yeah, yeah. Is that something that we also can treat?
Yes, but with difficulty. And that's why I'm saying complicated cases need long-term treatment and management. So if your patient come in with all these complications of medication and suppression and lifestyle and whatnot, we should educate them. But who to take the time, who is willing to, who is able to put all the time in that. If the patient is willing, of course, he can do a lot himself. We should warn them that it's not a magic pill. They go to doctors, pills, not to us. You know, it will take a while. A while might mean 2 years.
Yeah.
Because
and also,
yes,
and the education is tricky because there had been a lot of brainwashing going on from the early stage in life, and it's difficult to undo it, especially if everybody around you is not I don't know how to say it in English. If not everybody is blowing the same horn around you. But I think it's also very necessary to educate people as we go from the first session on, because and even if it's not a matter of a disease induced by lifestyle or by medication, it's important to educate them about the possibility of this.
Yeah. Yes, you know, before, I think that's also a change. Before, when we had simple cases, you could just pop in a pill, I mean a homeopathic pill, and you know, miracles would happen. Whether they knew anything or whether they changed anything or whether they had no idea what you did, but no problem, you just give homeopathic remedy and order was restored, as Hahnemann would put it. But now, way too often, this doesn't happen. It does happen with children still. And that's the good thing about it. So we don't lose trust in our homeopathic system. The system is great. The system is fine. The patients are a bit less, you know. Children still respond very well, in general, very quickly in general. And so often the parents are convinced because of the children. If they just would be less fearful, and send more children, that would be good for everybody. They're too fearful, because if the children starts to cough or they have just a little fever, you know, they rush to the doctor for antibiotics and, you know, all this medication to lower the fever. So also that needs education. But if they finally go to the homeopath with the eczema or whatever, and they see quick results, we know our system is fine, and they see that the results are there. But in grown-ups who had longer history, have a longer history of suppression, complication, pressure, traumas, traumatic events, emotionally and all that, it probably will take longer.
I was, I remember this now. I was sitting in with a very experienced homeopath in Germany, and he would actually, he would go with this classification, and often he would treat a lot of people who, or better said, he would recognize a lot of syndromes that were induced through medications, and often through hormonal medication like the pill, or thyroid medications, or also hypertension medication. He would see that the syndromes that had developed through the use of these medications on a long-term basis. And he would tell the people, and he would even quote Hahnemann that homeopathic remedies were not designed to cure these conditions, because it's they cannot just be cured with that. It's a damage of the, it's a constitutional damage. And well, he used the remedies anyway, and of course they also helped the patients, but to just rectify a little bit the expectation of the persons, the patients.
It's a bit of a disheartening message, of course. We shouldn't tell it too openly, but wrap it up a little bit, because indeed Hahnemann was talking about natural diseases. And a lot of things we see today, a lot of patients come to us with unnatural diseases. And the natural disease would be their state, their origin, their constitution, we call it their vital state, whatever, the way they are. That's their natural disease. That's what I said, Sankaran incorporated as a miasm, you know, like the way you are, whether it's acute or syphilitic, doesn't matter, it's your natural state. It's your miasmatic natural state, the way you perceive yourself and the world, and how you operate on all levels. But then, if it's covered up or complicated or distorted with all kinds of unnatural diseases, which your colleague was more experienced in than I am, for sure, then it requires another treatment. And in Holland, we have a lot of homeopaths now who are trained in the CEASE method, and that's a detox, how do you say,
procedure?
Complete procedure of detoxification before you start even thinking of treating. And you know, Peter Chappell has also a whole range of remedies for detoxification on all levels. And he even claims that if you detox enough, you know, even a traumatic residues, you hardly ever have to treat the symptoms because they all disappear.
Yeah. Okay, there is more to talk, but we are already talking for a long time, so I would like to ask you for another chat on this topic, and I would like to go into detail a bit more about this natural disease and induced disease, and how we discern on which level we have to address the problem of the patient in the current moment. Yeah, I would like to speak about that in the next session. So in order for people to catch up a little bit or refresh their memories, where can we find this in the Organon? Can you mention an aphorism where Hahnemann wrote about it?
I have to look it up. I think 70 and the following chapter.
Yes, yeah, I think so. Yeah, 70, around that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and about
that's where
100 and 100 to 104 is about epidemics, I think. Treatment out of the normal, how to treat, because then you can find the genus epidemicus. But I think the aphorism before that is classifications of disease.
Yeah. Around 70. That's it's not too many actually. It's just maybe maximum 10 aphorisms where he talks about the classification.
Yes, he says Organon is theory until 70. And then it becomes practical from 70 on. And then he says, okay, there's a few things you have to know about diseases, about medication, how application. That's it. So he starts with diseases.
Great. So we leave this for next time, and people can review this in the Organon. And we will also speak about in the coming sessions about more kingdoms, among them the fungi kingdoms, which is another big thing.
Yeah.
And also another question that came in was what to do what to prescribe when we don't know which substance it could be, when we don't know the substance, when we have an idea but we cannot come to a conclusion. And that will tie in also with further discussions about classification, I'm sure. So that's something for the near future.
Good. So we keep that for the next talk on the Friday.
Yes. For some of the next Friday. Yes. So thank you very much, Anne. I enjoyed this a lot.
You're welcome.
And have a good day. I see you next Friday.
Okay. You too. Have a good weekend. See you next Friday. Bye.
Bye-bye.